In this video, I want to share with you some of my favorite game development books that I've read over the last few years. Now, I've read a lot of books about game programming, about game design, code structure, architecture, and just stories about game development in general because I love reading about it. But there have been a few that have really stood out and have transformed and helped me increase and grow my own game development skills. And those are the ones I want to share with you now, the ones that have been the most transformative for me. All of these books are books that I purchased just because they seemed good and that I've read and have truly become a part of my game development staples when I'm trying to make a new game and think about game development. There will be a link to each of these books below in the description that you can use to find them online. Just as a quick note, they are Amazon affiliate links, so you will be supporting the channel if you do decide to use them to make a purchase. The first book that I want to cover for this video is Unity in Action, which is a book meant for beginners to game development to learn how to do indie game development using the Unity game engine. Now, if you look around my channel, you'll see that pretty much everything I have is videos about Godot, or whether it's tutorials or devlogs that I'm posting. Well, before I did Godot, Unity, like so many people, was the first engine that I ever used when I started looking into game development. And you can see up at the top that I actually purchased this book a few years ago when game development was something I was really getting into. This was after about a year of really trying to get into it, being confused. I couldn't really understand Unity, game engines seemed hard to use, and it just wasn't intuitive as code, even though I was a professional software developer and felt like it should be an easy hobby for me to pick up. Well, I decided to bite the bullet and buy this book because I'd heard good things about it and I thought it would help me get through learning how to use Unity, and I like learning via books better than videos sometimes. Well, I was not disappointed. This has been one of my favorite books. It really kickstarted my game development career, and it taught me so much about how to do 2D and 3D games. It has a mix of both of them in there, and it was really easy to understand. It expected a little bit of programming knowledge coming in, but it just totally opened up the engine to me, and it was transformative in letting me actually learn how to develop my own games. And after I'd gone through this book and done the sample projects within, I thought I could make pretty much anything in Unity. And of course, I still had a lot of experience to learn, but I was able to start working on my own projects and get through it. And the best part was, the projects that were in this book were actually pretty fun to make. It wasn't like I was just trying to push myself to finish it. So Unity in Action is one of my favorite books for new game devs. Even though I love Godot and use it more than Unity nowadays, I would definitely recommend this book for anyone who's really trying to get into game dev and who likes to learn through books. The next book that I recommend to anyone trying to become a better indie game developer is Game Programming Patterns by Robert Nystrom. This is one of my all-time favorite books and has been super helpful for me as I've gotten into game dev and then tried to grow my own skills. What this book does is it tries to take some of the traditional and well-known and loved design patterns from the original software classic, Design Patterns by the Gang of Four. If you've never heard of it, I'll show it on the screen here. That's another great book if you're trying to grow your knowledge of how to design good software systems. This book takes those design patterns and applies them to games, and it is super helpful, super well laid out, and it goes step by step through some of the most important design patterns that games use nowadays and shows you how you can implement them to better organize your code, better structure your project, and just make it easier to modify and refactor as your game's development goes on. This book has been really transformative for me, and anyone who watches my tutorials knows that good code structure is something I'm really passionate about. And so this was the book that really, after I'd learned how to do game dev, really opened my eyes to the fact that there are a lot of really cool things to think about in the game programming, design, and architecture space, and it's really driven my love of writing good code within games. With this next book, we're going to move away from the coding side and more into the general game design side of game development. This book is Level Up, the Guide to Great Video Game Design by Scott Rogers. This was one of the first books I ever read on game design, and it totally changed my mind on some of the ways I thought games were supposed to be built. I was kind of in this rut where after having started in Unity and built a few small games, I just realized I didn't really know how to make my games that fun. I had ideas in my head that seemed cool, but when I actually put them down into a game engine, they weren't always that amazing or fun to play. And so I decided I would get some books and learn how to design video games. This book is a great introduction to game design. It's thick, it's got everything you need, and there's a lot of stuff, especially in the appendices, about design documents and really important things that go into designing and developing a video game. Now, this isn't the most in-depth look in the entire world at game design, but it is perfect for any person who is trying to get into game development or up their game development skills. It's a great book and I would highly recommend it. And for the next one, we'll look at something that's a little bit more in-depth if you're really trying to get a deep dive into how to make great video games. The next book that we're going to talk about is The Art of Game Design, A Book of Lenses. This might be my favorite book in this entire list, even though it's a little bit dense. The way it's formatted is the author, Jesse Schell, takes you through over 100 sets of different questions or lenses about game design and kind of dives into each of those questions or lenses and what they reveal about how you look at a game or should design it. This has been the most helpful book out of this entire video, really, of what's helped me in my own methods of developing games. So I would highly recommend this, even though it is a thick and dense text. One important thing is I think this book is specifically geared at people who already have a bit of a foot in the games industry or in making their own games. You definitely can use it as a beginner and it's super helpful, but you're going to find the most benefit out of it when you've made some games and are in the process of making a game. For me, it's been most helpful as I've been working on games and systems to kind of go through this book again, find some relevant questions and lenses, and to use them to kind of critique my game design and to keep improving and building on it. In that sense, it's been an invaluable tool that's just helped me think through how to design a good game in ways that no other book has been able to. So, highly recommend The Art of Game Design, A Book of Lenses. This final book that we're going to look at in this video is Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, and it's a collection of stories written by Jason Schreier that looks into the development process of some of the most popular games that are in the market today. I love this book. It's a little bit more of a fun one, less about specific game development, coding, or design, but it gives you an inside look into some of the biggest studios in the world and the games they're making, and just all the different trials and tribulations and breakthroughs, really, that come with making a massive game. So in that sense, if you're an indie game developer, it's not like you're going to see a lot of stories that are super similar to things you're going through, perhaps, although there is the story of Eric Barone, the creator of Stardew Valley, in here, which is a great story to read just for anyone interested in looking at a realistic take on how difficult it is to make a game. But it's still a really amazing compilation of stories about games you've probably played many times and really respect. And what it is a really interesting and good look at what actually goes into making a game and how difficult it is even in the AAA games industry. So in that sense, this is a great book and it will provide some much needed inspiration for you as you are embarking on your own game dev journey, even though a lot of these stories are filled with issues and trials and other things that have to be overcome. All these games eventually were made, were out there, and are games that you generally love and enjoy. So I love this book, and Jason Schreier is one of the premier games reporters in the world right now. If you've read Kotaku or ever seen basically any leak about any video game, you've probably seen some of Jason Schreier's work. So highly recommend Blood, Sweat, and Pixels. So there you have it. Those are my 5 favorite game dev books that I keep coming back to year after year whenever I start a new project or I just need to think through some game design problem again. They've really helped me out and been hugely beneficial in my own game dev journey, and I hope that you'll find them the same in your own. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.